Happy almost New Year. Hello, happy almost New Year, everyone. Hey, Margie. Hey, Leslie. Hey, Michael. It's nice to see you guys. Welcome to this liminal space between Christmas and New Year's that is kind of this interesting holiday moment. I love to take this time to take a reset and take a step back and try to understand what did I do this year that I loved? What did I not love this year that I want to change moving into the new year? And because I have a book coming out in 2 weeks, Right for Money and Power, I thought that I would start off part of this pre New Year prep with you, reading the book and sharing what I've been working on this year to help you reach your New Year's goals in 2026 when it comes to earning money as a writer, building a career that feels fulfilling and beautiful and expansive and interesting, even in the face of all of the ups and downs that us writers go through when we're trying to figure out, okay, how do I protect the artist part of myself? And how do I protect the part of myself that then needs to turn around and be like, okay, here's my book. Here it is for the world. And I saw one of the readers of the an early copy of the book posted on LinkedIn today, and she was talking about how she's using this pre-New Year liminal space as a chance to just really dive into the artist mode, because in this book I talk a lot about the difference between artist mode and CEO mode. And I really do think that as writers we have to go back and forth between both. And when you're in artist mode, you should just be really trying to sink into your craft and protecting the soul of writing and whatever you're up to. And then CEO mode is what we then kind of switch on to when we're focusing on, okay, how do I market my writing? How do I figure out how to put myself out there on Substack? And so I found that I get really stressed out if I'm trying to do both artist mode and CEO time simultaneously, because then it feels like you run into the friction that comes with, trying to figure out how do I make something that people love? And then how do I turn around and then try to offer it to the world? So I do think that separation is really good. And so once again, for those of you who just joined, hi, Joanna. Hi, Allie. Hi, Courtney. I'm going to be doing a live reading of my book, Right for Money and Power, which is out January 12th, 2026. And I am in the middle of preparations for the book launch, which I'm going to be doing here on Substack. I can't talk about too many details yet because we're in the middle of finalizing some exciting things for y'all. But there's going to be some giveaways. There's going to be some guests. It's going to be really fun. So I'm excited to share that with you soon. But without further ado, we're going to get into the opening section of Right for Money and Power. And if you haven't gotten the book already and you want to get it for 99 cents pre-order, I have a Notion template that is a pre-order gift. So if you want to grab that, you can go to amysuto.com/power to get your gift with the pre-order. And so if you have any questions about that, you can also shoot me a DM. Okay. Introduction. A manifesto for writers who want money and power. If you picked up this book, chances are you already love writing. If you write because it rewired your brain, helped you survive a breakup or a dead-end job, or because stories have always whispered louder than reality. You write because you have to. That's great, and that's the baseline of what it takes to succeed as a writer. However, what you're about to read is not about writing for love. That's a given and not something that I can teach you. No, this book is about how to write for money and power. Because the problem with most writers isn't talent, it's scale. You've got the skill. What you need now are the mindset and models that reinforce your belief that, yes, you can build a 7-figure writing career. And no, you don't need gatekeepers to do so. Why this isn't another freelancing guide. Right for Money and Power was never meant to be a sequel. When I sat down to expand on the ideas behind my previous book, 6-Figure Freelance Writer, I thought I was writing an extra chapter or two. I was planning to pen a continuation of tactics for people who wanted to earn more from their writing and to summarize the lessons that took my writing career from 6 figures to 7. But as the pages filled, it became clear I wasn't writing a handbook. I was tearing out the blueprints. What you're holding now is in something entirely different. Instead of a guidebook for freelancers, this is a full operating system upgrade. Not just for how you write, but for how you think about writing as a vehicle for wealth, autonomy, and power. Most writing advice assumes your goal is publication. This book Well, I'm going to assume your goal is liberation, freedom. Because what good is another productivity tip or pitch template if the entire mental model you're operating from was designed to keep you broke? What good is it to know how to build a brand if you still believe that you must starve for your art? This isn't freelance writing for dummies. It isn't monetize your creativity in 3 easy steps. This book is a reckoning. Yes, we'll talk about business models, how to structure your ghostwriting rates, paid newsletter ecosystems like Substack, and self-publishing strategies. But the real transformation begins long before the tactics. It begins in the rewiring of belief systems that told you writing and money should never share a sentence, that told you that power belonged to someone else, that said that you had to suffer for your art to earn legitimacy. I wrote Write for Money and Power to blow the ceiling off your creative limits. It's built to spark the kind of perspective shift that can realign your entire writing career, just like certain books on business, psychology, and craft once did for me. You'll also find some of my book recommendations listed in the back in case you're ready to keep the momentum going once you finish reading. My goal is to stretch the limits of what you think is possible, especially if those limits were handed to you by outdated systems or self-serving members of the old guard who never wanted you to have leverage in the first place. The writers this book is for. This book is both for fresh-faced beginners and grizzled experts, because in my experience, beginners and experts often wrestle the exact same demons. The names change: imposter syndrome, burnout, panic, or the worry that, what if this all disappears tomorrow? Underneath it all, the fear is the same. I'm not ready. I'm not enough. I can't charge that. I'll never get hired again. That script is the problem, and I'm here to rewrite it. Even if you have a perfect website, a snappy bio, or a buzzing client funnel, none of that matters if you can't confidently get on a call and pitch your rate. You won't go anywhere meaningful if you're scared to put your name on a book or hit publish or ask to be paid what you're worth. So we're starting where success actually begins, because when your mind is in the right place, action becomes inevitable. The next steps appear, the right clients show up. Your pricing finally starts to match your potential. And if you do want the more tactical step-by-step how-to guide, that's where Six Figure Freelance Writer was built for. You can grab the ebook for 99 cents from a retailer of choice and keep it as your tactical toolkit. Think of that book as the field manual, while this book is the command center. The method to the madness. Write for Money and Power will show you the exact methods that built my career. Will following them guarantee you 7 figures? No, but because there are just simply no guarantees in life. Just like death, taxes, and your laptop crashing right before a big deadline. What I can tell you is this. In my 10 years as a freelance writer, these are the truths I wish I had been obvious. Instead, I had to dig them up through trial, error, and a generous helping of late-night existential dread. I'm writing this for you, yes, but I'm also writing it as a service to the younger version of myself. The writer who didn't know what she didn't know. The one who kept refreshing her inbox, hoping the right opportunity would magically appear. This is for what I wish someone had handed me 10 years ago. Well, even 5 years ago, or potentially a year ago. To get here, I've made every expensive mistake in the book. I've undercharged, over-delivered, burned out, and walked straight into traps I now see coming a mile away. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars in missed opportunities, poor decisions, and painful lessons. I'm writing this to help you avoid the potholes and literal cliffs I had to tumble down in order to learn what I know now. The framework I share in these chapters is built on 3 income pillars that work together to support your creative freedom: paid newsletters, self-published books, and freelance writing. On their own, each of these can be powerful, but when you align them, they become a system that builds both income and independence. Most writers treat these areas like separate silos. In reality, they're deeply interconnected. And when you learn to build them in sync, each one helps accelerate the others. A paid newsletters, often hosted on platforms like Substack or Beehive, gives you steady income and a direct relationship with your readers. It's a space to test ideas, share your voice, and start charging for your in-progress thinking. It can also become a testing ground for a future book. A self-published book gives you something to sell. It's your intellectual property. It earns while you sleep. It helps your newsletter audience go deeper and gives you the chance to build long-term assets instead of waiting on publishers or agents. Freelance writing, especially at the luxury level, gives you high-ticket income that funds everything else. It pays the bills while you build your audience. It also becomes easier to book clients when you can point to a published book or a thriving newsletter as part of your portfolio. This system is what helped me grow my writing business, and now it's here to support yours. As you move through this book and explore how to bring these three pillars into your world, remember that this system is adaptable. I'll be sharing what worked for me, but you might be working towards something different. For example, I built my writing business to prioritize two things: one, taking care of my health, and two, having the freedom to travel. I've written from rooftop apartments in Barcelona, cabins in Nashville, and too many cafes in Seoul to count. That was the life that I wanted. But your ideal day might look nothing like mine. Maybe you want to write quietly from your home office with a dog at your feet and no airport security in sight. Maybe you're raising young kids or caring for aging parents or balancing a full-time job while slowly building your writing business on the side. All of that is valid. The goal isn't to chase someone else's version of success. It's to build a writing business that funds the life of your dreams. So if I'm talking about flying to Kyoto for a writing sabbatical and you're thinking about saving for your kids' college fund or building enough margin to take weekends off, just swap my dream for yours. The structure still holds. Power doesn't necessarily equal passport stamps. Money doesn't mean luxury. It means choices. And if this system gives you more space for the people and the things you care about, then it's already working. After you finish reading, I can't promise you fame, fortune, or inboxes full of dream clients. But I can promise you that everything of value that I've learned, built, tested, and refined over the last decade is in these pages because I believe in paying it forward. And these words are me sending you that goodwill your way. How I got here. I didn't start with writing with power in mind. I started with panic. Fresh out of USC Film School, I landed the dream first rung on the ladder, a Hollywood assistant gig working under big names. I fetched green juices, tracked red carpet RSVPs, and took script notes from people who hadn't read the scripts. I told myself that I was lucky that this was the price of entry. When I finally clawed my way into a TV writing room, I had a writing credit and a seat at the table and was still dipping into savings to pay rent, even as I had an episode of TV with my name on it. Everyone around me said the same thing. Be patient, pay your dues, wait your turn. Except I'd done everything right and I was still broke, still burnt out, still begging the same gatekeepers who handed out scraps with a smile. Then came the real turning point. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. It happened shortly after I went all in on freelancing. I had walked away from Hollywood, from the career path I was supposed to want, and instead of crawling back to the assistant ladder, I was choosing myself. But then my fingers started swelling, typing became painful. The very thing that I staked my livelihood and identity on, writing, was now the thing making me cry at my keyboard. And then the moment came that changed everything. It was 2021 and the thick of all of that excitement happening in 2020 and 2021. I was sitting there in the waiting room of my first rheumatologist office waiting for answers. A woman walked in, visibly in agony. Her joints were so stiff she couldn't hold the pen to sign her name in the check-in form. I watched her try, my heart hurting for her. I watched her choke back tears as she begged the front desk to be seen early, that her rheumatoid arthritis flares were worse than ever. And I remember thinking, is this my future? I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis that day, and I knew in my bones and in the joints that were already betraying me that I couldn't wait on an industry to save me. I couldn't gamble my health on maybe someday or pay your dues or when you're lucky enough to get staffed again. I needed to write in a way that paid my medical bills now. I needed to rewrite my business model in a way that didn't break my body. So I stopped doing what I'd always done, overextending, over-deliberating, over-communicating. I got ruthless. Fewer clients, higher rates, fewer boundaries, systems that serve my health, not the hustle. It wasn't easy. Rheumatoid arthritis is one of the most expensive autoimmune diseases to treat. I spent tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. I fainted at that first blood draw, lying woozy on the exam table, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I was facing, not just physically, but financially. And in the beginning of my journey, I had doctors who weren't committed to helping me before I found the ones who could. One doctor even refused to run the iron panel I asked for until I fought back. When the results came in, the deficiency was severe. I had to learn to advocate for my health while also learning how to advocate for my writing. But I'll go ahead and skip to the good part. I got better. I found the functional medicine practitioners who listened. I overhauled my routines. I scaled back my hours while scaling up my income. I prioritized healing, and in the process, I rebuilt a writing career that didn't depend on traditional institutions or 12-hour days. And now, as of the writing of this, I'm in full remission, off medication, and stronger than I've ever been. I hike the 26-mile Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. I take boxing classes for fun. I climb stairs for pleasure when just a few years ago, I could barely walk without wincing. Write for Money and Power isn't just a guide to making money as a writer. It's about finding your personal power and wielding writing as the tool that helps you take it back. Now, I live in my dream home here in San Francisco, surrounded by forests and today, sunlight, sometimes fog. I ghostwrite memoirs for founders and other inspiring individuals across different continents. My paid newsletters clear six figures a year. My self published books, like the one that you're reading now, fund both passion projects and plane tickets. I watch the sunrise over Cappadocia, taken month long sabbaticals in Florence, booked flights to China simply because it sounded fun. These pages are here to tell you that it's okay to want more because more is possible. Not in some vague follow your dreams poster way, but in the form of actual business models, pricing frameworks, sales scripts, and systems. We'll get there by reprogramming every outdated script in your head that says money is selling out and power is for someone else. And let's be clear, I'm not talking about fake power, not a title, not a meager book deal that undervalues your talent, not a screenwriting job where someone else owns your best ideas. I'm talking about power in the form of true freedom. The ability to write what you want when you want, to never set an alarm clock unless it's for an international flight, to bankroll your life, your travel, your boldest ideas. That kind of power is real, and it's learnable even if you're a complete beginner. If you've ever felt the pang of wanting more, money, impact, freedom, then welcome. Let's turn that fire into strategy. Chapter 1 starts with a lie that keeps the most writers broke, and then we burn it down. So, hello, everyone. If you just joined, I'm reading from my upcoming book, Write for Money and Power, The Anti-Starving Artist Guide to Becoming a Seven-Figure Writer, which comes out January 12th. It's nice to see you, Joe. Hi, everybody. Hey, Rachel. So I mentioned earlier on this call, but we're actually planning like a big, exciting book launch day that I'm hoping that you guys will all become a part of. And I'll be sharing those invitations soon. If you have any questions as I continue to read, you can drop them into the chat and then I'll check it every so often. But I'm going to continue on and read the first chapter of the book, which is The Lie That Keeps Most Writers Broke. And this book was very much inspired by a lot of time that I've spent when I was a TV writer in Hollywood. And even when I've been working with ghostwriting clients, my memoir ghostwriting clients, seeing them really struggle with the traditional publishing industry, as well as my own experiences with that as well. And so this book is totally self-published, and just like all of my other copies. And thanks, Georgina. I'm glad that you ordered a copy. Thanks for supporting. And what I really love about self-publishing, I've had a few authors on my Substack Live who are self-published, including another author who's coming up soon. And I think that there's so much power in self-publishing. And that's why this book covers part of that self-publishing kind of entity and how it can fund everything and be part of your freelancing flywheel and Substack flywheel as well. I was actually just talking to one of the writers in our 6-week Substack sprint who has a memoir. And what she is considering doing is taking chapters of her memoir and publishing them on Substack to start to build a readership that will then read her self-published book. So I do think that if you are on Substack and you do have a Substack that has any kind of piece of personal essays or your life or your experience, or if you're sharing business tips, building that to a book is really helpful, because I just had a post go out today where I was talking about the behind the scenes of the podcast tour I'm on now for the book. And if you have a book to share with the world, it opens so many doors. Not only can you have something to give people that is your whole life story and who you are and what you teach, if you teach something, or your experiences, but it also allows you to go and promote the book by meeting cool people on a podcast tour, which is kind of the modern day equivalent of a book tour. Instead of going to Barnes & Noble, you'll instead hop on podcasts and share your experience with the book. And so there's a lot of really cool doors that open when you self-publish. And even the other day, I was reading a Substack article from somebody who was a traditionally published author. And she said that she had spent over $50,000 on a publicist for a traditionally published book, which to me is crazy that the publisher wouldn't cover her book publicity fees and she still would only make 38 cents on the dollar or 38 cents per copy of a book that she was having to pay out of her advance to promote. And unfortunately, that's kind of the norm for a lot of traditionally published authors. Is if you want to be pushed, I won't go too down that rabbit hole, but you can see I have a lot of opinions about this. But I think the best way for me to share some of those opinions is moving on to chapter 1. of Right for Money and Power, The Lie That Keeps Writers Broke, which does cover some of these things that I think are really kind of hurting writers. Okay, the lie that keeps writers broke. Chapter 1. Picture this: Rome 1508. The Sistine Chapel is a dusty construction zone. Fresco pigment thickens the air. Scaffolds groan. And Michelangelo, paint streaked, exhausted, allegedly cranky as hell, isn't there working because of divine inspiration. He's there because the Pope backed up a proverbial Brinks truck. He didn't work for exposure. He wasn't grateful just to be chosen. The Vatican paid him 3,000 ducats, the modern equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he negotiated every detail. Payment schedules, assistance, materials, timeline. The man even submitted line item receipts. Now stop and let that sink in. The artist, we've been told, was perpetually starving, was operating as a contractor, not a beggar. By the time he died, Michelangelo had accumulated a fortune that, by some conservative reconstructions, would be worth more than 30 million pounds or over 35 million US dollars in today's money. That number doesn't square with the image you've been sold of the tortured genius eating stale bread in a rundown, candlelit room. Instead of being a beggar, Michelangelo was stacking gold like a Medici side hustle, using his image to his advantage. The starving artist narrative didn't start in the bohemian cafes of Paris. It was PR, and you were never the customer. You've always been the product. How I got suckered into the lie. I was 22, underpaid, triple shot latte in hand, working phones at a rising literary agency in Hollywood. Headset on, heart cracked open with ambition. This was supposed to be the first rung of the ladder on the way to my dream. I had done everything right. Graduated from USU's screenwriting program, landed an assistant job inside the system, and spent my days juggling call sheets and lunch orders for the power players who made the dreams happen. From the outside, I looked in. From the inside, I saw the rot. Even as I moved on from that job and got deeper into the industry, I saw established writers unable to pay their credit cards. Some lost their homes in the turmoil of industry politics and show cancellations, even if they had storied credits and had contributed to fancy shows that raked in money for the executives running the show. The strategy was simple. Keep writers dazzled by proximity to power. Give them a backlot badge, a fancy title, and a tiny windowless office with a named parking spot as a consolation prize. Dangle the illusion of prestige just long enough to keep them broke, grateful, and obedient. It worked, and now the income of writers in Hollywood is crumbling with the outdated system. According to the Writers Guild of America, screenwriter earnings and employment declined by 6% during the first 3 quarters of 2024. And the number of working screenwriters decreased by 15% compared to 2022. Quick side note, I recently heard the stat was even crazier. In this last year alone, there were less than 20 movie scripts sold in 2025. And there's like tens of thousands of members in the WGA. So this is pretty crazy. And even seeing the number of shows on air now compared to when I was working in Hollywood, it's like 1/20th like of the shows that were on air. So I have friends who work in Hollywood now still, and they're also saying it's pretty bleak. I had a front row seat to the collapse long before the trades caught up. One of the most surreal moments came while I was working in glossy, high-profile series. Our writer's room was in a mansion in the Hollywood Hills with marble countertops, panoramic views of Los Angeles, and catered lunches on the patio. It felt like we had all made it. And then the show got canceled. Just like that, the illusion cracked. The contracts ended, the emails stopped. And every writer in that room, people with real credits, real talent, years in the game, began scrambling to figure out how they were going to make rent, pay for health insurance, keep their kids in daycare. The despair hit fast and quiet. We threw some big parties on our way out of the mansion, but I saw the fear underneath the champagne toast. Because when you don't control distribution, you don't control your livelihood. That wasn't a bug in the system. That was a system working exactly as designed. You can have the Hollywood Hills zip code, the buzzy show, the glittering IMDb page, and still lose everything overnight. The dream isn't real if you can't own it. And what most writers think is power is just rented status. Real power is building something that doesn't disappear when the mansion empties out. I met the writers I thought that I wanted to become. Quietly behind closed doors, they told me what it actually cost. The medical debt, the NDAs, the creative compromises, the 10 years it took to get one pilot made, and then how the network buried it. Meanwhile, your team all takes a cut of your earnings, even if you get a job yourself. Studios and publishers are constantly looking to trim budgets, and writers are the easiest line item to squeeze because of the damaging starving artist lie you've accepted. They'll steer you towards the project with the widest audience appeal, not the ones that actually light you up, because their incentives aren't yours. Some of the highest paid creatives in Hollywood can't get their own projects made. Francis Ford Coppola reportedly had to borrow over $100 million against his own wine business to fund his movie Megalopolis. If he has to mortgage his own wine empire to chase autonomy, what does that say about the rest of us? Meanwhile, the studios run Hollywood accounting, so a blockbuster that grosses hundreds of millions of dollars can legally post a loss, stiffing the creatives on net profit bonuses. And one thing that I want to say about Hollywood accounting is if you Google the term, it's super fascinating to see how they get away with it, which is, movies that are insanely, insanely popular, like, are shown to be like, oh, this crazy blockbuster, it didn't make any money. And they do this by, creating losses that don't actually exist. Crazy that this is illegal. But when I found out, like, whew, this isn't really a business, it's really fascinating. So if you're curious about that stuff, it's a really interesting rabbit hole to go down. Some very creative people in the accounting departments of Hollywood. Like, it's crazy. So no more waiting. You've been told to wait patiently for a book deal, a staff job, a producer who finally gets it. And in that waiting room, your audience is slipping through your fingers. Your best work collects dust in a sad file on your computer while you hope someone on a studio lot returns your email. I've been inside the machine that you think you want to be part of, and I'm telling you it's not built for you. It's not here to serve you. The people within it might be kind, even brilliant, but the system itself is not designed to make you rich, powerful, or free. It's meant to benefit the people at the top. It's designed to keep you grateful. It's designed to keep you waiting. And if you think it'll be all worth it once your show gets made or your book hits the shelves, remember that traditional publishing often takes 2 to 3 years to launch a manuscript. Screenwriting timelines are much worse. You could sell a pilot tomorrow and wait 5 years before it airs, even if it ever does. 99.9% of purchased scripts are killed before they reach a film set. Sometimes your story might even be taken away from you and given to another creator to make instead. If you want money and power, you cannot afford to give your voice, your future, and your platform to people who see you as a line on a spreadsheet. And if you're still not convinced, that's okay. You may need to walk the road and see it for yourself if it's worth it. Who knows? Maybe the slot machine will turn in your favor. Maybe you'll get the big deal, the dream job, the New Yorker review, which, by the way, you can still get if you self-publish a book. But even if you win, you still don't own your audience. And when the machine gets tired of you, or the project tanks, or your name gets overwritten, what's left? You've bought lottery tickets with your precious time and energy, and if the odds aren't in your favor, you have nothing to show for it. No email list, no reader connection, no platform you control. I've seen it happen, I've lived it up close, and I'm here writing this because I don't want that fate for you. You don't need to beg the machine to feed you anymore. You can build something of your own. You can own both your words and the revenue, reach, and resonance they create. You just have to stop seeking approval from gatekeepers and start building. The middleman math. Let's talk about the math they hope you never run, because once you do, the whole house of cards starts to wobble. Middlemen aren't just gatekeepers. They're margin thieves dressed like opportunity. And they count on your creative dream blurring your financial vision. It's time to fix that. TV staffing, the mirage of momentum. Staff writer on a hit show sounds glamorous, and for a few months it might be. Minimum pay on a WGA contract as of 2025 starts around $5,069 a week. Not bad until you realize you're only paid during the room's duration, maybe 10 weeks, but the actual length of a writer's room has shrunk in recent years due to cost-cutting measures at studios. You'll owe 10% to your agent, 5% to your lawyer, and maybe another 10 to 15% to your manager, which comes off your gross earnings, aka your pre-tax cash. Your checks can be delayed months while your agency assistant fires off endless just checking on status emails to business affairs. Side note, it's crazy how long sometimes people's checks get delayed. allegedly. Your intellectual property, otherwise known as IP, gone. You don't own what you write, the network does. Oh, and that deal you signed, it likely includes exclusivity or a first position clause, meaning if another show wants to hire you, you can't say yes unless the scheduling aligns perfectly or unless the original show releases you, which they often won't. So, yes, $50,000 for 10 weeks might hit your account. And then you could go 12, 18, 12, 18, even 24 months or longer without another staff job. You still don't own your rights, your audience, or control over your destiny. That's not a business model, that's a very fancy cage. Power lies with the person who holds the keys to your dream, and if you don't take them back, you'll be begging for every step in your writing career journey. Book deals, more like book debt. Meanwhile, the publisher owns your copyright and decides whether or not your book gets a paperback, an audiobook, or a pulse, which is crazy. Total sidebar here. I've met some self-published authors who either did not get a paperback version of their book or did not get a hardcover version of their book, which I think is crazy because so many people prefer either hardcover copies of books or paperbacks, depending on the person. And so when you remove one of those, you remove buyer's choice, which then can hurt the royalties you make. Spoiler alert, just because your book is being published with a big imprint does not mean you'll ever see it in hardcover or paperback for that matter. I know what you're thinking. Book deals are heralded as the goal of many writers. A six-figure advance feels like champagne money. Pop the cork, right? Slow down, the check isn't a paycheck. It's a liability stamped recoupable, which is industry speak for debt. Until your royalty statements claw back every dollar, you're working off the balance like a junior associate pulling all-nighters for the partners upstairs. Not to mention that a big book deal trumpeted as seven figures can dribble out in 5 installments over 4 years, while 15% flies to your agent before your taxes hit. Even with a $50,000 advance, which sounds great on paper, you might end up with less than $30,000 after your agent and taxes. Then subtract your launch budget because you'll often be footing the bill for personal publicity and extra book marketing unless you're a marquee name. And if the book doesn't earn out, good luck getting a bigger advance next time. Think of a book deal contract as a bank note with your talent as collateral. The publisher takes a mortgage out on your future pages. In return, you get a lump sum now, but they own the house. Miss a deadline or ask for a structural rewrite, and they can hold the next payment hostage. They can even call in a loan by demanding repayment if you walk away. That's not freedom. That's indenture wrapped in a congratulatory email. Side note, I've worked with a lot of people who have gone the traditional publishing route in my ghostwriting, but there's actually a story on Substack, which I'm going to link to when I send out this replay, of this woman who had worked for like 2 years with this publisher. I think it was like 1 to 2 years. And then the acquiring editor who had her book got fired and she had to pay back the advance. I read that and my jaw dropped. And I've heard like quite a few stories like this where if they can't find a new editor from your book, sometimes depending on the contract, they can make you pay back your advance, which I thought was like insane. I'm like, no way. So I'm going to try to find that link and I'll attach it below. The recoupment math rarely lands in the author's favor. Most books never earn out. Returns, discounts, and confusing royalty math drain your momentum before the book even breaks even. If the book falls short, you may keep the advance, but good luck negotiating a higher one next time. Your sales track record is tattooed on your ISBN for every editor to see. Meanwhile, you've traded your autonomy for the privilege of being someone else's employee. Cover design you hate? Tough. Marketing plan that consists of a single post from a publishing house account? Smile and reshare. Launch date shoved a year and a half out because of a celebrity memoir cut the line? Send another grateful email and shuffle your PR roadmap. Contrast that with self-publishing, which I'm a fan of. Upfront costs are yours, yes, but so are the royalties, rights, and the timeline. You decide whether to price your book at $4.99 or $24.99. You choose the audiobook narrator. You pivot on a Tuesday because the market shifts. No overpaid executive can kick your work into oblivion. Understand that a book deal is book debt, just an unsecured loan with creative strings and a velvet lined cage. If you're chasing wealth and freedom, independent publishing, which I've been calling self-publishing, is the way to go. But we'll cover how to approach publishing like a creative entrepreneur later in this book. This is a path where you, not an overworked publishing exec in Midtown decrying the downfall of a martini lunch, hold the deed to your writing life. The indie path, where the math actually works. So let's look at the flip side, the ownership path. This is the trio of creative, profitable business models that let you take full control. self-publishing, paid newsletters, freelancing. Each one gives you leverage, speed, and ownership in a way traditional systems simply don't. And total side note here, if you're publishing on Substack, you're already self-publishing, which means you're directly going to your audience and you're already writing for readers. So you're already in that arena and it's more fun here anyways, but I'll try to convince you of that later. So but for now, here's a quick overview of how these three business models work and how I'm going to go deeper into this book and share how they are intertwined. So, self-published book. You keep the copyright, you decide the timeline, price point, cover, and content, as we've discussed. Print-on-demand platforms like Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark take approximately 30%, which includes printing fees, because they print and ship your book, they handle returns, they do deliver global distribution on major book buying platforms. They offer distributions to libraries, bookstores, and universities, and allow you to see your sales in real time. They don't own your work. They don't touch your ownership. And if you want to scale up later and print in bulk with your own fulfillment setup to make an even bigger margin, you can, and you'll reduce your per unit costs. Write those expenses off and you can keep even more margin. Yes, they do take around 30% depending on your setup with them, but they do the heavy lifting and they don't sit on your rights. In this case, you're outsourcing logistics without sacrificing ownership. And this is very different from traditional publishing, where I've read a statistic where it's like about 30 cents is the royalty percent amount that writers often get on their books. And that's a book of like $16. Like it's really very, very different than getting more like 70% of your earning versus what you get in traditional publishing. Paid newsletter. So, of course, you guys have heard me talk about paid newsletters all the time as part of the 6-week Substack sprint here on Pseudoscience. So, I'm a fan of this one. And I think it's a great second piece of this business model. So, with your paid newsletter, you own your audience and your email list is yours forever. You control cadence, topic, offer, and pricing. Fees range from 2.9% to approximately 10%, depending on the hosting and the payment platform, and you get paid fast, sometimes next day. No agent, no exec, no delay, just value offered directly and money in your account before the espresso finishes dripping. Freelance writing. Unlike Hollywood or trad pub contracts, you write the terms. If you want 80% up front, ask for it. That's what I do often. Want a kill fee and a 2-round revision limit? Add in. Want to work asynchronous from a yacht off the coast of Croatia? Cool, it's your contract. Freelancing lets you set your own rates, choose your own clients, scale based on your bandwidth, not a studio's budget, and cancel or negotiate terms on your schedule. When you understand the value you bring, you can build a career around non-refundable deposits and flexible deliverables, not begging a studio for the rest of your check 18 months after you turned in a script that they never shot. Why the lie persists. The starving artist myth survives because it benefits the middleman. Here's how. Scarcity economics. If writers believe income is about luck, they undercharge on principle. They work for exposure. They treat pay as a bonus, not a baseline. Romance of suffering. Starvation is rebranded as purity. Poverty becomes a badge of honor. And if your rent is supposed to be, as if your rent was supposed to be paid in vibes. Why do you think Hollywood and the publishing industry portrays so many writers as broke and starving in a way that paints the suffering as romantic? Institutional bloat. Layers of agents, assistants, retreats, and catered lunches have to get paid. Guess who absorbs the cost of your agent's $100 lunch with one of 100 network execs that they might meet with that year? Or quarterly retreat for their office? Spoiler, it's you. Michelangelo laughs from his marble tub. Your wake-up call. It took me years to realize that words are leverage. Writing is capital. Your stories are real business assets. And when you treat your career like you're the CEO of your destiny, the whole game flips. You can self-publish your next book and grow a reader base so loyal that they sell it for you, one ecstatic review and social post at a time. You can start a paid newsletter about topics you never shut up about and turn it into a 6-figure subscription business just by being yourself. You can ghostwrite a memoir for a high-profile founder and earn more from one book than most authors see in a decade, allowing you to fund your freedom and creative projects. But only if you let go of the discount dance mentality. You are not a typist. You are not a starving poet waiting for a call from an agent who stopped reading slush piles a decade ago. You are a strategist, a tastemaker, a founder of a one-person writing empire, if you choose to be. More on this on Chapter 8, Becoming a Creator CEO. What comes next? In the chapters ahead, we're going to torch every leftover scarcity script they slipped into your head and replace it with systems, strategies, and numbers that build real wealth. We'll build a money engine that pays your rent, your private chef, and your month in Tuscany. I'll teach you how to build writing-based revenue engines that let you eat croissants in Paris at noon on a Tuesday without scrounging for time off. We'll define what power means, not in fake titles, but in time freedom, creative power, the ability to live, work, and thrive on your own terms. Because the scandal isn't that writers want money and power. The scandal is how long we've been told that we don't deserve them. Power moves. Your myth detox starts now. Right now, write down the biggest number you've ever allowed yourself to imagine earning in a year from your writing. Got it? Now triple it. That tight feeling in your chest, that's the myth leaving your body. The rest of this book is about how to make that number feel like a warm-up. Let's begin. Amy's Field Notes, a few words from my brownstone era. In November of 2024, I spent most of the month in New York City living in a brownstone in Chelsea, right across the street from Brooklyn Bagel, which is home of, and this is not up for debate, the best bagel that I've had in my entire life and perhaps the entire world. Every morning, I'd walk down my tree-lined street or order an everything bagel with egg, pepper jack cheese, and maybe an avocado if I was feeling like it, then loop over to Starbucks for a hot chocolate. This was when I wasn't drinking coffee. Rip. Then I'd return to the brownstone, sunlight pouring through the windows, vines curling up the brick, and I'd write. That's where most of my romantasy novel, The Ash Trials, came to life. It was a dream stretch of time, the kind of writing season I used to think only existed for people with book deals and calendar invites from important people. But here I was in a city that built its legacy on literary gatekeeping, writing on my own terms. No green light from anyone but myself. No advance check tied up in a contract. Just me, my words, and the revenue stream I'd built around them. So when I got invited to a Substack party on the Upper East Side, one of those invite-only salons for best-selling writers on the platform with 100-plus paid subscribers, I said yes. I showed up to a wood-paneled, old money kind of venue with New Yorker profiles hanging on the walls and waiters with silver platters boasting tiny hors d'oeuvres. But what struck me wasn't the setting, it was the energy. Everyone in that room had figured out how to make writing their job. No one was waiting for a green light. These were writers with 100 or even 10,000 paid subscribers. These writers were making tens of thousands, even millions of dollars because readers wanted to hear what they had to say and were paying for the privilege. There were no gatekeepers in that room. No one was simply handed their readership. Everyone there had built something. The gripes still existed, but the jokes and the champagne flutes and the exchange of subplots and strategy was something far more powerful. Personal power. These were self-made systems, self-decided paths. Everyone in that room had built their own version of literary success. For some, that was on top of past success, but there were many self-anointed writers in that room. I left the event a little overstimulated, but buzzing with ideas. I hopped in a car and watched the Manhattan skyline pass by as I took stock of the writers I had engaged with that night. And I thought, this is it. This is the future. Writers used to need publishers, producers, and institutions to validate them. Now, we just need a laptop and the guts to hit publish. That's what this book is about. Not chasing crumbling institutions, but becoming undeniable without them. You'll read about how to attract your true fans, how to own your platform, how to step into a new mode of power. One bagel sandwich, one subscriber, one chapter at a time. Awesome. So that was chapter 1 of Write for Money and Power. And thanks, Leslie. Yeah, so you can pre-order the book on amysudo.com/power. And here I will drop the link. I wonder if this will show up in the chat, and I'll send it with the replay. And as I mentioned earlier on the call, I have two special pre-order bonuses. For people who pre-order the book before it comes out on January 12th. So the first pre-order bonus is if you pre-order a 99-cent ebook or a single copy of the book, I can send you, or you'll be sent a free Notion template. And so you have to go to amysudo.com/power to submit a form to get that. And this is the Notion template that is inspired by all of the different recommendations in this book. And it's also based on the Notion template I use to organize my writing, where I've pitched things, all of the different client projects that I have going on, my daily dashboard, all of that is free with a 99-cent purchase of a book if you want to pre order. And then if you want to purchase 10 copies of a book and either donate them, the extra ones, to a library or other friends or writers, then you'll get $400 off the founding membership for Make Writing Your Job. And as part of that founding membership, you'll have access to our quarterly writers intensives. You'll have early 24-hour access to our featured jobs, and then also, full access to the writing job board and things like that. So those are the two things that expire on January 12th. And if you want to pre-order the book, you can get those. And so you can pre-order the book anywhere books are sold. It's on Bookshop, Barnes & Noble, things like that. And pre-ordering really does help us self-published authors. It truly is something that changes the trajectory of whether our book goes somewhere or kind of like toils in obscurity. Same thing with leaving a review. If you've already read the book, if you were an advanced reader, then you can leave a review on Goodreads. And then when it comes out on Amazon, because that's where reviews really matter. But I think that what really the whole point of this book and the whole point of why I wrote this past year is because I think that there's the biggest limiting belief that's holding you back, that was holding me back, and is something I'm consistently returning to, is this idea of mindset. And so the first chunk of this book is all about mindset, the things we've been told. And it's also about trying to rewire our beliefs about what is the future and what does it mean to succeed as a writer. And I have a chapter in here where I talk about how two of arguably some of the biggest creators of our time. So Taylor Swift is ended up self-publishing her tour book, and Brandon Sanderson, who's a huge fantasy author, ended up self-publishing his next chunk of books for millions of dollars through a Kickstarter. And so if some of the greatest creatives and artists and writers of our time are self-publishing, going direct to their readers and their fans, what does that say about what else we should be doing? And I also go into talking about how to reprogram the starving artist myth. And I talk about how many of us on this live right now probably don't realize that, William Shakespeare, who was very much portrayed as kind of like a starving, slightly crazy artist, he co-owned the Globe Theater. He got royalties for performances. And so when you think about a lot of these, artists, and you think it's romantic to suffer, who told you it was romantic to suffer as an artist? Who told you being a starving artist was hip and chic? These gatekeepers, because they don't want you to ask for what you're worth. They don't want you to back your work and to actually hit publish on your work and put it out there. And I have a bunch of interviews lined up with amazing creatives and writers. And this book is for you, even if you want to go get a book deal. Because even if you go get a book deal, you still have to grow your Substack. You still have to build other forms of ways to get your work out there and distribution. So if that is a path that you want to go, absolutely. But I think that I wrote this book for you, no matter what stage of life that you're in as a writer and a creative, to put yourself out there. And I think I'm going to do one more chapter. And here are some of the chapters I'll read off, and then you guys can let me know if there's one you want me to read first. So I have a few different chapters and sections in here. First section's about mindset. I have a section about daily success routines. I have a chapter of focus as your secret weapon. I have a chapter about haters proving that the work matters and how to deal with criticism when you start publishing your work. I have a chapter about how to build a luxury ghostwriting business. There's a chapter about, obviously, Substack. And then there's some chapters about building your dream team. There are chapters about self-publishing books. So if there's something that's jumping out to you, otherwise I'll pick something that I think would probably be a good one to end on for today. You can feel free to either drop it in the comments, or I'll go ahead and pick one. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into one of the chapters that I think that I've really loved writing. And it's something that I think is the advice that I really wish people that I had gotten earlier, because this is one of the things that held me back as a writer and a creative. And it's called Focus is Your Secret Weapon. And this chapter in particular is something that I think we do not think enough as writers, as creatives, as business owners. And it's something that I think is really, truly going to change your life if you can take the advice in this chapter, because it changed mine. So chapter number 4, focus as your secret weapon. We live in a culture engineered to fracture your attention. Social media monetizes your distraction. Your inbox is a war zone. Your to-do list is probably a graveyard of half-finished priorities competing for the same sliver of bandwidth. If you're working a 9 to 5 while building your dream career in the margins, you know the pressure of trying to fit your entire life into evenings and weekends. That was me. I believed I could do it all if I just caffeinated harder. That focus was something optional, something for minimalists or those with an abundance of free time. But I was wrong. In a world that wants you distracted, choosing to focus is an act of true power. The midnight oil mirage. In your 20s, you run on the midnight oil, that late night fuel that lets you bang out 10 pages at 2 a.m., then show up fresh faced to your day job 5 hours later. Energy feels infinite so that you don't have to prioritize it. But midnight oil is a non renewable resource. Around your late 20s, sooner if you've been stress sprinting, you'll notice the tank doesn't refill. You try to push through, but the well coughs up sand. You say things like, I used to party until dawn, ace a final, and rewrite a pilot all in the same week. That empty well of energy doesn't care about what you used to do. Kyle connected the idea of burning the midnight oil to why working for gatekeepers in your 20s can be so sinister. Who are you really burning that precious midnight oil for? Yourself? Or are you burning your high energy years for companies and institutions that don't care for you? Kyle mused during a road trip we took around the United States with our friends. Long car rides had led to conversations breaking down where we'd been and what had been taken from us. What's being taken from you? So, what happens when your natural supply of energy and youthful go, go, go mentality starts to dwindle? The midnight oil is replaced with focus, not the multitasking, tab hoarding kind, the weaponized kind, the kind that turns your effort into impact. Lamp versus laser. Greg McKeown's excellent book, Essentialism, which if you haven't read, it may change your life. Like, warning, it probably will change your life. So highly recommend if you haven't read it. It nails the metaphor of how we spend our energy. Picture 2 circles, each fed by the same amount of energy. The first shoots a dozen arrows in every direction. It's a lamp illuminating everything but igniting nothing. The second one shoots one concentrated beam, a laser, because the light is focused, it can burn through steel. The lamp, on the other hand, doesn't stand a chance against a piece of sheet metal. Hollywood and traditional systems train writers to stay in lamp mode. Keep 5 scripts going, the agents say, keep multiple irons in the fire. Translation: diffused energy makes you docile and conveniently controllable. No wonder so many talented writers spend a decade orbiting good ideas that never escape gravity. I attempted to keep up with the multiplying demands of the industry back when I worked in it. 1 pilot here, 3 features there, freelance copy on the side, progress everywhere, momentum nowhere. Then I picked my targets. On the creative side, my romantasy novel, The Ash Trials. I wrote it start to finish in 4 months. It got more praise than scripts that I tinker with for years. On the writing business side, I raised my freelance writing rates from $90 an hour to $1,000 an hour. During the 5 years, I poured real focus into growing my ghostwriting services. When I stopped diffusing my energy and started directing it, things started breaking through. Discovery mode versus execution mode. So what does focus actually look like? It doesn't mean permanent tunnel vision. Focus has seasons. Here are the 2 modes I believe you should intentionally shift between. Discovery mode, the first one, is lamp time. You explore, research, brainstorm, chase rabbit holes, soak up inspiration. The goal is curiosity and possibility. Discovery mode is great for trying out different types of freelance writing specialties to see what you enjoy better. Or it may be great for playing around with a new project like a paid newsletter to see where your interests lead you. Discovery mode helps you see what's possible before you commit to a project or a path. The mistake most writers make is staying in discovery mode too long or trying to multitask both modes at once. The second one is execution mode, which is laser time. You pick the one project that hits your gut like a tuning fork and you shut down everything else. Calendar blocks, app blockers, your personal green light to go all in. Sometimes writers struggle with execution mode because this is where the limiting belief of writer's block loves to try and shut you down and force you back into discovery mode. Writer's block, and this might make me a little unpopular, but writer's block is not real. It's just a code name for a weak muscle of resiliency that you need to build up over time by truly committing your entire focus and dedication to the demands of execution mode. Don't let task switching, distractions, or a negative internal monologue pull you off course. When it's time to execute, treat the transition like a launch sequence. Start in discovery mode, and then once you're ready to light up the sky with your creativity, move into execution mode. Declare it publicly, set a timeline, make it hard to back out. Discovery fuels creativity, but execution delivers results. Flow, the furnace that shapes steel. I became a writer because I loved the feeling of my fingers flying across the keyboard as words appeared on the page. Hours would go by, and I would forget to eat as I was completely consumed by the act of writing. Psychologists call this state flow, where hours vanish and writing feels channeled instead of typed. That's the writer's high. It takes effort and skill to attain, but it's euphoric all the same. However, flow requires depth. Splintered attention murders it. As James Clear, author of the must-read book Atomic Habits, reminds us, another fantastic book, unfinished projects do not compound. Every half-written draft resets your momentum. Every abandoned project or return to discovery mode because you couldn't finish something only sets you back further. On the other hand, finished work compounds twice, once in revenue and again in reputation. This is why focus is a superpower. It allows you to actually complete the projects that you say you want to do and turns one day into today. Fear, the quiet thief of focus. So, why do we cling to half written everything? Why do we split our focus between projects or even industries? Fear. Fear of betting wrong, of wasting time, of failing in public. I didn't go all in on full-time freelancing for years because mentors told me there was a ceiling for what I could make and accomplish as a freelance writer on my own. Then the 2020 era shut down my writer's room. I went all in on freelancing and my income tripled. The ceiling was fake. My scattered focus had kept it intact. Focus feels risky because it makes failure visible. But diffusion is the bigger risk because it guarantees mediocrity. The laser protocol. Before we dive in, let's set the stage. You don't need to be a Luddite or throw your phone in the lake, but you do need a system. When my freelance writing business first started to take off in 2020, I was still treating it like a side project squeezed between Hollywood writers' rooms and odd deadlines. I hadn't yet allowed myself to go all in. My days were a patchwork of client calls, half-finished drafts, and frantic espresso runs. I told myself that I was working, but what I was really doing was trying to sprint across a minefield of distractions. It was very clear in the results. My inbox overflowed, my file system was chaos, my body was dehydrated, and my brain was wired, or Kyle's word for that wired but tired state you hit after mainlining caffeine at 11 p.m. without moving the needle on anything meaningful. Kyle had seen this before. Back then, we were just friends, not yet romantic partners, but he was already something of a Zen master of productivity. And I see Kyle's on the call. So, hey, Kyle. Pre 2020, we'd spend afternoons in boba tea shops where he'd sit, headphones in, quietly perfecting a single line of a script for hours. And Kyle's a fantastic writer. If you haven't read any of his fiction, he's truly excellent. While the world blurred around him, I'd work beside him and marvel at his discipline. He wasn't militant about it. He'd take breaks, chat with me and whoever else was writing nearby, but his focus was a kind of gravity. People stayed in orbit around it. One day he came over to my apartment in Los Angeles to help me figure out why my days were collapsing under their own weight. I'd been bragging about how busy I was, but when he actually sat down at a makeshift desk next to mine and quietly observed, he saw the truth. My phone vibrated every minute. App pings and random calls poured in. Delivery people rang the doorbell. All my appliances were going at once. Laundry tumbling, coffee pot gurgling, a chorus of distractions. Papers were stacked everywhere. I hadn't had a sip of water in hours. My email was a slot machine of unread subject lines, and my whiteboard was a graveyard of scribbled to-dos that never got crossed out. After an hour, Kyle looked up from his laptop. "It's surprising how much you got done," he said, "but you rushed the whole way through." His point was that I wasn't lazy, but it was that I was splintered. I had the bones of a system, but too much noise to let anything breathe. Then he walked me through his minimalist productivity protocol, which I still use to this day. Turn off all notifications on every device except truly urgent calls or texts. Start the day with reflection and journaling. not inbox triage. And this one I sometimes don't do, but it is a good piece of advice. Batch emails and calls and defined admin blocks. Protect deep work at all costs. Keep your workspace, desktop, and inbox clear to support a clear mind. He even bought me a smart water bottle that measured how much water I drank in a day, a gentle intervention to rehydrate my brain along with my calendar. And quick side note, if you're a woman listening to this call and you are dehydrated, there was a study that came out recently showing that you have like a 70% like hit in mood if you're even just barely, dehydrated, which reminds me, I'm gonna drink some water. So there is something to that. It's pretty crazy when you actually start looking into the science of it. Anyways, at first, it felt unnatural. My distractions had become a kind of comfort and a way to avoid going all in on my own work. But as I followed his advice, my mental static started to fade. I realized my biggest problem wasn't time management, it was identity management. By treating my freelance writing like a side hustle instead of a full time creative business, I'd allowed myself to stay scattered. The laser protocol, my name for the system I've adapted from Kyle's productivity rules, was more than a list of hacks. For me, it was a reset button for my nervous system and my mindset. It forced me to decide, was I going to keep playing small, darting between other people's priorities, or was I ready to focus like a real business owner? Today, I still use Kyle's protocol. My phone stays quiet, my morning starts slow. My workspace is a landing strip for ideas, not clutter. And yes, I drink my water. More importantly, I've learned that the discipline of focus is really the discipline of choosing yourself. You can't build a seven-figure writing career from the scraps of your attention. You have to carve out a block of uninterrupted, undiluted presence and move through it like a laser. This is the heart of the laser protocol, the courage to give what you're working on your true focus. It's a way to build the conditions for your best work to emerge and to teach your brain day after day that your dreams deserve your full attention. Even if you don't have a Kyle in your life, you can still steal his digital makeover to get a focus-friendly approach to your work. Here's how to flip from scattered to sharp. 1. Energy audit. Track your peak creative hours for 1 week. Then use a time tracking tool to see how you're really spending your time. What's draining your energy reserves? What's being done at the wrong time? Then protect your peak hours like they print money, because they do. 2. Project triage. List every active idea you have. Circle 1. Archive the rest in a later folder. Relief is instant, or it should be. Focus on your top priority and put everything else secondary. 3. Time blocking. Block at least 2 hours of uninterrupted deep work. 30-minute scraps won't cut it, unless that's all you have access to, in which case just work with what you've got. However, if you have control over your schedule, try and build up to 3 to 4 hours of deep work per day and see how your goals accelerate and your laser rips through all obstacles. Public stakes. Number 4. Tell someone, your group chat, your partner, your newsletter readers. Set up your pre-orders on your book so that you have to upload your book files for a real deadline. External accountability focuses the beam. 5. Environment engineering. Phone off. Tabs closed. Ritual helps to signal to your brain, laser mode engaged. 6. Recovery cycles. Move your body, touch grass, nap. Burnt out lasers melt themselves first. 7. Finish relentlessly. Ship it and hit publish. In my book, Six Figure Freelance Writer, I introduce you to the concept of admin days versus deep work days. I still stand behind this method where you place your creative heavy lift sessions into 3 or 4 days per week and then corral the inbox, invoices, and calendar shuffling into the scraps that remain. In this book, I'm expanding on that concept. In the past few years, I've also zoomed out to create the concept of growth weeks and maintenance weeks. Growth weeks are pedal to the metal, chapter sprints, launch prep, client marathons. These are the weeks you push for massive growth and progress. Maintenance weeks are the built-in pit stop. A little admin, a little reading, maybe a light writing warm-up, but they're then an early clock out so the brain can wander. These are the weeks that you play hooky and book an 11 a.m. brunch with fellow creative friends with flexible schedules rather than grind it out at your desk. I shoot for 1 maintenance week after every 3 to 4 growth weeks, tweaking the ratio for deadlines, travel, or hormonal cycles. The payoff for finding the right balance of the gas pedal and the brake is guilt-free productivity that matches real-world energy rhythms and keeps the creative engine purring. Power move, the 1 project pledge. Choose 1 creative project this month that you will move across the finish line. It can be a draft, a pitch, a landing page, a proposal, a script, anything that matters. Announce it, write it down, calendar in the work sessions. Then treat that project like it's the only thing standing between you and your next level, because it might be. Amy's Field Notes, Finding Focus in Paris. My trip to Paris wasn't part of some master plan. It started with a last minute decision to see my favorite band, Glass Animals, play live. That was the headline, but the real story unfolded quietly over croissants and cobblestone streets, antique flea markets, and late night conversation. It was November 2024, the tail end of a year that had taken me everywhere: Istanbul, Kyoto, Seoul, and beyond. A year of beauty and momentum. I had published The Nomad Detective, continued to grow my ghostwriting business, and was watching my Substack make writing your job start to take a life of its own. New paid subscribers were rolling in daily, ping after ping like tiny confetti cannons on my phone. It was exciting, chaotic, a little surreal. This was all happening as we were living on the top floor of an apartment in Montmartre with a view of the Eiffel Tower out one window and Sacré-Cœur out the other. Paris unfolded below us like a map we had somehow earned the right to read. Our mornings were slow. We'd walk down the street, stopping at a small store for those incredible sandwiches made from farm fresh produce on homemade baguettes. We visited an expat friend at a cafe, meandered the Musée d'Orsay, and dipped into boutiques and bookstores with no agenda. But behind the wandering was something else, a sharpening. On one particular morning, Kyle and I were walking to a local Paris flea market, heading to meet up with friends. As we crossed into that beautiful, chaotic maze of antique stalls with gilded mirrors and old film posters stacked like playing cards, the conversation Kyle and I were having shifted. What do we want to focus on? What matters enough to warrant our full attention the next year? Kyle and I kept walking, and by the time we reached our friends, we had decided. For the next 12 months, we'd grow Make Writing Your Job into something self-sustaining, a true community platform, which we did. And I'm so grateful for those of you who are part of that community, because it's honestly just been so lovely. So thank you for joining if you're part of that community. And then I'd keep executing my highest leverage client projects with care, but would be careful not to take on too much. Then I'd make space to finish the ASH trials before its February release. That was it. 3 things, no more. We didn't write it down that day, but we carved it into our reality. And since then, the focus has held, with a few detours, of course. I mean, this is life, not a factory line. However, our energy moved in the direction we pointed after that conversation. The Substack became the flagship and a top 25 best-selling publication. A team formed around me. The Ash Trials debuted as my first romantasy novel. And now, as I write these pages, we're packing for our bags in a month in China, which was an awesome trip. Knowing that our systems and our team will keep the engine running while we chase inspiration across time zones. Sometimes I look back and laugh at my 2019 and early 2020 self, the scattered version of me who was wired all day with my inbox overflowing and buried in maybe projects would have crumbled under the weight of what I'm doing now. She wanted to do everything all at once, but she didn't yet know that focus isn't a limitation, it's a spell. It conjures the future that you actually want. Focus is what gave me a business that runs with my values baked in. It's what gave me a paid newsletter and a backlist of self-published books with a readership that grows while I sleep. It's what gave me the space to fall in love with fiction again, and to fall in love, full stop, with someone whose systems rewired not just my productivity, but my belief in what's possible when you stop running from your own potential. You don't need to go to Paris to make this shift. You don't need a partner to sit beside you and talk you through the chaos, though I do recommend both if offered. What you do need is the courage to name what you want and give it the unbroken attention it deserves. Because here's the truth. Every year I become someone new. And every version of me that I've loved most, the writer, the founder, the romantic, the student of wonder, all arrived because I bet on myself again and again and again, even through failure. Focus is just another word for commitment. And commitment is how dreams get made. So make the list, make the plan, light the beam. I'm cheering for you. So that was chapter 5 of my book, Write for Money and Power, which is coming out January 12th, 2026. Thank you guys for listening. And if you missed the earlier mention on the call, because we're coming out on January 12th, there are pre-order bonuses available. You can buy the ebook version of the book for 99 cents, and you'll get a free Notion template if you go to my website, which I'll drop it in again in the chat, at amysudo.com/power. And thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for you to read the book and to hear your thoughts. Here you go. I can type and talk at the same time. Okay. Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate that, Michael. This book is something that has been a labor of love this year, and I truly did write it for you. And I wrote it because it's just something that I feel like there's so much in here, the mistakes that I've made that were costly and heartbreaking. Truly, truly heartbreaking mistakes that I've made that I literally would not wish on my worst enemy. And thanks, Margie. Thanks for joining. And so I truly like am wanting you to avoid the things that I went through where I'm like, I wish I never had to do that. I wish I could have just teleported here. But everything happens for a reason. And I'm so grateful for everything I've been through because I've been able to write this book for you. And so, again, the book is Write for Money and Power: The Anti-Starving Artist's Guide to Becoming a Seven-Figure Writer, out January 12th. And if you, again, pre-order 99 cents, you get the Notion template. And if you want to pre-order 10 print copies to either give to a library or writer friends, then you'll get $400 off your membership to Make Writing Your Job at the founding tier, which gets you access to our mastermind group where we meet every quarter, a group of us writers, and work on our goals and workshop what we're doing in the realm of not only just freelancing, but also all of the other opportunities we post on Make Writing Your Job when it comes to all of the grants, residencies, and contests. And we just had a writer rejoin the community because she placed in a travel writing competition she found through our board. So there's a ton of cool opportunities we have. I think that a lot of people don't know about the Wednesday list that we send out every week that our team researches so in depth. It is grants, residencies, and contests, and you can go and get sent to like a villa in Paris, or there was one recently where they're sending people to Berlin to like they're paying for your flight, they're paying for your accommodations, and they give you a stipend to hang out in Germany and with a bunch of creative people and work on your novel. So even if you're somebody who doesn't want to do freelancing, but you still want to get paid for your work, go check out Make Writing Your Job for that. And then lastly, if you are looking to grow your Substack, which is one of the tenets of this book, I know we have Margie and Michael and Leslie are here from the 6-week Substack sprint. If you want to join us, we are starting up again next Tuesday. Is coming around the corner really quickly. And then I'm also working on scheduling an office hour so that we can all chat face to face and workshop our Substacks together. So if you want to join that, you can go to pseudoscience.com. And if you want to join Make Writing Your Job, you can go to makewritingyourjob.com. And then if you have any questions, if there's anything that you need, always feel free to reach out and DM me. And I hope you guys are having an amazing liminal space time between Christmas and New Year's. And I can't wait to see you guys in the other end of 2026. So thank you for spending this time with me. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye. And thank you so much.